Here we go. I'll take it out. All right, welcome to week 2/3 of team or league buckets. We're on location this week in Green Bay. You have your boy Bacon here with co-host Peter Pan this week. We'll just call it Pan, sticking with the bacon, no eggs thing. He's filling in for no eggs. We're going to talk about last week's results for week 2 and look ahead to week 3 this week. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll kind of quickly glaze over last week's results, starting with the painful one. Beer Money taking it to yours truly, roughly 162 to 118. When you got literally 4 players that score over 22 points, it's a tough one. So
that is tough. And then same for me. Although I picked this game, I expected Graves to beat me. I didn't know it would be
not so
the
high scoring,
lowest scoring matchup of the week. I figured if Graves only scored 83 points, I might be able to beat him, but didn't start Jason Witten. Didn't know he was going to. I thought
your hero from week 1.
Thought week 1 might have been a fluke, but sure enough, he's apparently turning back the clock this year. So hats off to Graves for taking me down in a low-scoring affair.
Saito and Bush. Bush taking it to Saito. Kind of a trend. Not very many close games this past week. Bush scoring 130 to Saito's 79. Bush kind of riding that Todd the Bod train. Kind of a spoiler alert.
Sadly,
still on that train.
Sadly, we'll
get
to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So
the next matchup, again, none of these are close from here on out. Mine and Graves is about the only close matchup. Kimball dominated Casey 144 to roughly 117. Sammy Tats took it to Elmo 145 to 97. And the last matchup,
yeah, newcomer Nick. Apparently that's your name. Took it to Paulson. Paulson with under 70 was the low-scoring player.
Wished I would have played you last week, Paulson.
Yeah.
All right, so now we'll jump into week 3.
Predictions and the reasons why. We'll start with, I'm not going to proclaim kind of like no eggs. I'm not going to proclaim this team to be the greatest. But my team, who is at 0-2, takes on Graves. Skull chant.
Rube.
Yeah, sip on that Kool-Aid, Graves. So projections have me winning kind of comfortably, and I'm going to go along with the projections. I'm going to take myself to beat Graves. The only kind of issue I have is Graves does have OBJ, who looks to be getting healthy. If he has one of those OBJ games, there's a possibility it's close, but I do like Big Ben. His matchup as well as AJ Green against the Packers secondary.
Yeah, Packers secondary show that they can't cover number 1 receivers. They're not terrible, but as of Julio last week, until the Falcons took their foot off the gas pedal, they couldn't stop Julio. So that's a good matchup for him. I'm also going to go with Peters winning this week. Graves just has, unless Odell has a game like he did last year, Russell Wilson, Terrell Pryor, Terrence West, Mark Ingram in a timeshare, just not good matchups. So the only way he could win is if maybe Christian McCaffrey and Odell really do well. Jared Cook maybe. Washington's got good corners. But I just don't see it happening, so I'll give Peters a nod as well. Then we'll go into my matchup this week. This is very, unlike the last matchup, very influenced by the Thursday night game. As we talked about earlier, Todd Gurley had almost 38 points, which is about more than halfway to what my team scored last week. But luckily for me, I did have Pierre Garçon drop 21, so not a bad week for Garçon, but a really good week for Gurley. And Bush has some plus matchups. We both have good matchups, but when you have a guy like Gurley who's already got almost 40 himself, and then he's got Antonio Browning in Chicago as a plus matchup. Stafford has a plus matchup. Jarvis Landry, Crowell even hasn't done much this year, but he's got Indianapolis. I have some decent matchups as well, but I just don't know if it'll be quite enough to take down John as though. I'm not counting it out totally, John. Don't think that I'm giving you the victory 100%. I still believe I can win, but if I have to pick one, I'm going to go with you.
So 2 for 2 on the picks, then I agree as well. I took Bush. Todd's start a little too much to overcome. I do like Golden Tate's matchup. I do like Matt Ryan's matchup. Could be closer than the projections show now, but I don't see Pokala overcoming that. So moving on to the homosexual bowl, that is Saito versus Casey. Fairly close. Now we move into some close projections. With Saito and Casey's first one within 5 points. I'm going to take Casey this week. I do like Tyreek Hill and Shady McCoy. I like McCoy having a bounce back week. I think Tyreek Hill is very good. I think Saito's projections and team a little bit too dependent on a guy named Adam Thielen or Thielen.
He's white.
Yeah, not going to happen, especially with Bradford out. I don't like Saito's team. For that reason, I do take Casey in a fairly close one because they're both god-awful.
And I'll not disagree on that point, but I'll disagree if I have to pick a winner. I am going to go with Bills Cowards, a.k.a. Ben Saito. Jameis Winston against the Vikings, who their defense isn't bad, but they can only do so much for that terrible offense without Bradford in there, who I still can't believe I'm saying that Bradford looked really good with that offense, but
Against the Saints.
yeah, it was against the Saints. Kelvin Benjamin plus matchup against
the Saints.
Weird. Yeah, weird. And then Marshawn Lynch, Washington, nothing scary about that. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to get a wake-up call after acting like a little bitch last week and quitting, basically. I think he'll have a good week. I just think roster-wise, and then is in Saito's favor slightly, and then Casey's got some tough matchups, except for watch out for Tom Brady. Had a good week last week. He might be the one guy that might give Casey a chance, but I'm going to go with Saito. Moving on to our next matchup, the Revolution in Elmo versus Brad Kimball. The Revolution's projected to win 124 to 121. But I'm going to go against the projection. I'm going to go with Brad's bold team, and he's got a good matchup on Sunday night with Derek Carr and Michael Crabtree, who were unreal last week. Washington's secondary is pretty good, but I think Josh Norman's going to be on Amari Cooper and might free up Crabtree a little bit. Emmanuel Sanders, nothing scary about Buffalo, and then his running backs both drew questionable tags this week, but Melvin Gordon and Ajayi are both, not gonna lie, Kimball might have the best 1-2 combo at running back with Gordon and Ajayi, so I'm gonna go with Brad to get a supposed upset win over Elmo.
So we're gonna chalk that up to another disagreement here. I took the Revolution. Mariota does not have a plus matchup against Seattle. However, I think Seattle's strength could be against the run defense. I know the Legion of Boom is not what it used to be. Mariota struggled this year. I look for him to do a little bit more, and for Tennessee to do a little bit more to try to get some points on the board through the air, also on Mariota's legs instead of Murray/Henry's legs. And I do love Devontae Freeman's matchup. I look for him against Detroit to get a lot of points, especially against a sub-par linebacking core with Detroit. Detroit's secondary is positive, so I'm going to go with the Revolution. Moving right on to Sammy from Miami against Paulson. Paulson with that great score of 69 points-ish last week.
Tough start, Paulson. I honestly liked your team to start, and now you've got a couple injury problems. It's a tough start. Not counting you out too much, but
projections of 124 for Paulson, but projections of 126 for Sammy. I'm going to take Sammy from Miami. I really do like Julio Jones in a matchup this week. I like Aaron Rodgers just because I like Aaron Rodgers. Also because there are already those doubts about Aaron Rodgers again this year, the similar doubts that came in last year when they started 4-6. We all know how that turned out. I do like T.Y. Hilton, but the tight end issues with Paulson is a little bit too much for me to overcome. I take Sammy in a fairly close one.
Yeah, going right into it, we're going to agree on this one. Tight end Paulson, I'm not sure if Jordan Reed's a game time decision, and Greg Olson's on IR, so you don't have another tight end on the roster, so you might want to
Hence the issues part.
check into that. And T.Y. Hilton, again, the quarterback issues there. Mari Cooper against Josh Norman. The one guy that might be able to, kind of like the matchup with Graves and Peters earlier with OBJ, Le'Veon Bell against Chicago, he might put up even just the same or more than Todd Gurley even this week, and that might be enough to get UW. But if I have to pick, I got to go with stats. Like he said, Julio Jones against Detroit's not scary. C.J. Anderson has been playing really well this week. Gronk is playing this week. They said he looks good, and again, Rodgers at home usually plays very well. So I'm gonna have to give the nod to Sam's stats. And then going into our last matchup, both of John's friends from St. Louis, Jason against Nick. We have a little bit of an influence from Thursday night. Just Nick had Carlos Hyde play. He has Sammy Watkins on his bench with 28, which it sounds bad, but neither of us can fault you for not playing Sammy Watkins after the first couple of weeks.
That would have been a tough play.
Yeah, and James White is a solid play, and then your other receivers are Des Bryant and Devontae Adams without Randall Cobb. So I don't fault you for that, but that's just a tough break whenever that happens. Anyway, Beer Money's been off to a solid start, but I'm going to say that after Carlos Hyde big game, I'm going to give him the nod that he gives Beer Money his first loss. Cam Newton against New Orleans. Cam hasn't been great, but New Orleans defense we know is not good. Devontae Adams, a few more targets with Randall Cobb out. And then Buck Allen from Baltimore, I think, is going to have a big week. Terrence West is questionable, which means he's going to be more limited on his snaps, I think. And last week, Allen, when he had more carries, more looks, he did very well. So I think this could be a very close one, but I think that Nick is going to take the W here.
And we're going to end on an agreement. I also took Nick to win in a close one. Really specifically for the Carlos Hyde, I do love Buck Allen. I love that matchup. As Garrett said, I do love the fact that Terrence West is questionable, so I love the fact that Buck Allen's going to get a lot of play. And obviously Woodhead is still out, so PPR league, Buck Allen's going to be a 3-down back. The reason why I gave the nod is obviously Kansas City. Beer Money, it relies on Kansas City with Kareem Hunt, Kelsey. I think Kansas City has a fairly good matchup. It's going to be good points there. The one that I put over the edge was Mike Evans. Xavier Rhodes is going to be matched up with Mike Evans. Obviously, you got the Hitman giving a little bit of help as well. I don't like the Vikings. The strength is the Vikings defense. I do believe they can match up well enough to take away enough of Mike Evans. They did it last week with Antonio Brown. I feel like they can do it enough this week. Keep the points down for Mike Evans. Beer Money, you killed me last week, but I don't see you quite put enough points, especially with Carlos Hyde, how he started. So.
Yeah. I think Hunt has been unreal, but maybe comes back down to earth a little bit this week, maybe only in the teens for scoring. So that's about it. We'd like you guys to post what you think matchups-wise, but other than that, we will see you next week. Surprise guest host, Peter Pan over here,
Hey.
your boy Bacon. Probably get no eggs back next week, so good luck.